I am delighted to be joined by Kate Ferdinand on our podcast. Kate is 31. She was a Towie star and a business sports manager. She wrote a brilliant book called Fitter, Happier, Healthier. She's the host of the very successful Blended podcast. She's also married to Kate Ferdinand, has 3 stepchildren, and we'll talk about that word step. Lorenz, Tate and Tia, and she's the mother of her son, Cree. So welcome, Kate, and thank you for joining me. And actually, can I be a bit therapist and ask you what your childhood was like, right? And how is your childhood sort of informing your parenting now when you have all these children?
Thank you so much for having me, by the way. Oh, I'm a bit nervous. Is this a real therapy session, Julia?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think my childhood has shaped me so much.
That's
I'm
interesting.
an only child. I grew up living with my mum. My mum and dad broke up when I was around 3-ish. And my relationship with my dad, to be honest with you, it's a real big blur. A lot of my childhood, I couldn't tell you certain things. I just don't remember. I think I've blocked some of it out. So I did see my dad for a period of time, and then it became rocky. You know, there was lots of problems with the courts, my mum and my dad, and
Gosh.
I didn't then see my dad for certain periods, and I ended up, having those daddy issues. I think, like, I felt like at the time maybe he didn't love me, and I really felt his absence. And my relationship with my mum when I became a teenager was very turbulent, to say the least. And yeah, I often felt, I don't think it was true. I think I was very loved, but I often didn't feel loved, and I felt quite alone.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, first of all, I have a problem with saying only child, as if only isn't enough.
Yeah.
Just being one child. And, what we know from the research, and actually what you're describing from your experience, is it isn't when parents get divorced that children suffer, but it's when they have conflict in their divorce that children suffer. And that when they don't find a way of sharing the parenting, coming to terms with the separation, but also communicating so that their daughter, feels loved and secure and connected. And it sounds like your father kind of disappearing and your mum and dad being in litigation, you kind of felt like you kind of got lost in the battle in some way.
Yeah, and I think I went a bit off. Well, I know I went a bit off the rails, and I was a bit of like a crazy teenager, probably doing all the things you would hate your kids to do. I just think I was.
What did you do, Kate? Tell me.
Well, I used to run away from home.
Oh,
God,
wow.
I'd run away from home. I'd stay out all night. I'd do all-nighters. I don't know, you name it, Julia. And I mean, my kids hear this, I'm going to be fuming because they absolutely can't be doing that.
I was going to
yeah.
say, did Lorenz is a teenager, so are they
Yeah.
doing the things that you did?
Absolutely not. And we do talk about this sometimes at home, and they say, Kate, you had crazy childhood. But I think it is very different. They're surrounded by it, even though they've lost their mum, and that's a huge loss for them. They're surrounded by a lot of love, and they feel loved and they feel supported. And I think, although I did have love around me, I just felt very alone. I don't know what I was searching for, but I think maybe I was just trying to get away from it all.
I mean, I think if you felt alone, you probably didn't feel loved. And so you were distracting yourself from the pain of that, I would guess. And it feels like from, when you and I have talked before and here, that with Rio and joining his family, you have found a way of belonging and being loved in a way that you never have before.
100%. I feel like I always kind of longed for that family setup, and I've got it. But although I feel loved and I love my family, I've also kind of fallen into being a stepmom, where I also sometimes feel that it's not my family. although
Yeah.
I know it is, I have this kind of like, demon on my shoulder every now and then. I still feel like it's not my family because I'm not their mum. Does that
So
make
what
sense?
is, yeah, so if you're thinking about what is your greatest challenge that you're facing, you've had to overcome, is it finding a way of legitimizing yourself as a mum to these three children who aren't biologically yours, and that you can kind of feel, I don't know if this is the sort of ghost of Rebecca delegitimizing you, telling you you're not a mum, that you're a fake or you're not good enough.
Yeah, I think that would be one of the things. But I think that um there's probably a few actually. Um it's my own insecurities, I think, that sorry, let me just think, that make me feel like that. I don't think it's often anyone else. It's me. I know my children love me. I know they see me as part of the family. We are family, but just every now and then, certain times, certain events make me feel a certain way. And obviously they were formed as a family before I arrived. So with the addition of Cree, my biological son now, I do feel a bit more secure because we all started the journey of Cree together, if that makes sense. Whereas they had their own journey before me, and often at times I kind of feel a little bit left out. I mean, I try and know as much as possible, but I do. But I also think another struggle would be just learning to carry on. And I think as a child I was quite misunderstood. Obviously, I did go off the rails and I was a bit crazy, and I often felt misunderstood even up until being on Towie, and I was on a reality show, and it only shows a certain side of me. I was going through a breakup and I always felt very misunderstood. So maybe just learning to love and accept myself for who I am and not for what other people think of me or their judgments.
I mean, that shows real kind of insight, doesn't it? Because what I've understood is that your early experience of feeling kind of alone and left out does get played out even in this family where you're not alone, where you feel very loved. It pushes those old buttons, what we in the therapy world call the ghost from the nursery. And obviously, the opposite of being alone is being known. And one of the definitions of being loved is being known as you are. So going on Towie, which is reality show is the reverse of what it is, right? It's like a complete unreality show. And but that also pushed those buttons, didn't it? That people were projecting onto you all sorts of things about how you looked, or what was shown, what was edited out of what was going on for the program. So that would have turned the volume up of you as you know yourself don't exist. But it does feel like, as you're talking to me, and you've talked on your fantastic podcast Blended, that I do want to know more about, that you are discovering these sort of true versions of yourself as you are letting people see these truer versions of yourself.
Yeah, because I feel like I've always had to I'm fighting against this force of like what people think I am versus what I really am. And it gets to a point where you have to just give up because it doesn't really matter what they think. But saying that, I also feel better about that, I think, because of Blended. Before, I'm on social media and I don't think it's always a true reflection of who I am. A lot of my life is my children. I don't share them for like privacy reasons. And I don't feel like I get to be the real me. And the situation that I come into with Rio, and obviously being a stepmom to three children that have lost their mum, um, you can't really just talk about that every day on social media. Like you can't, it's not fair on the children. So I kind of felt stuck, like I was battling something and going through it, but I was scared to share it and scared to speak about it. And then when that was happening, I obviously didn't meet anyone in a similar situation and I was struggling, but I couldn't show that through like my socials or anything, that I was doing. So creating Blended, I think has made me feel much more relaxed. Like I'm getting to be me and I'm talking and meeting people that, yeah, and having real conversations.
It's incredibly powerful, isn't it? Like what I'm hoping to do with this podcast is that, social media is an incredible force for good in lots of ways, where, we can tell the world about all sorts of subjects that we wouldn't connect to unless it was for social media. But this idea of authenticity, that how you feel and see yourself on the inside is how you show on the outside, is virtually impossible in social media because it is kind of curated. So there's a whole kind of bit of you that gets missed out. But also in that being missed out from people connecting to you, you sort of feel lost and very alone again. So it sounds like through the podcast, you are recognizing the feelings that you have. And it's like with grief, that they're legitimate feelings and that what you're feeling is normal, although you feel like you're going mad.
Yeah, and I think social media, it's great for so many things, but it's a hard place sometimes. And for me, I felt like I'd upload a photo of what I'm wearing. I don't even really care what I'm wearing, but I feel like I can't really be me on it. So then I'm playing into my own feelings of, oh, well, I'm not being myself. It's not, I don't know. And it becomes this vicious kind of cycle. So blended kind of sets me free from that a little bit.
So what do you think, given the experience that you've had with Rio and the children and having your own child, what do you think it was about that experience that was particularly challenging for you?
Where do I start, Julia?
Start
um,
with the biggest, the thing that comes to mind first.
oh God. No, I'm saying it sounds terrible. There's so many amazing parts. Like, let's start with amazing because that makes me feel
Okay.
better.
Yeah.
Um, the children really did teach me Lorenz, Tate, and Tia, my stepchildren, a completely different love because I've never experienced loving a child before, and they just taught me love and being together and having that family time. Because I haven't got siblings, and my family was a rocky road at certain times. That was like amazing. Like, I was so grateful for that, and so I feel so lucky to have that. Um, but there was hard times. I mean, if I just start from the beginning, just the simple thing like coming into a home that wasn't yours and that another woman had lived in and her belongings were still there, and having to try and do what's best for the children because that's the priority, but just manage your own feelings. And it's coming into another space. Like my home, I had a small flat. It was all homey and it was just exactly how I liked it, and I kind of felt safe there. It was like my safe place. To then being in this big house, which is amazing, but not really feeling safe anywhere in the house because I haven't got my little zone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, or somehow it felt like you were an intruder on
Yeah.
Rebecca's house, and Rebecca had died, but somehow she hadn't died. She was still very, very present. And the tension between allowing them to continue their relationship with their mum, although she's died, which is one of the complexities people don't understand about grief, is that it's not about forgetting someone and moving on. It's about connecting and remembering them, but also finding a place for yourself so that you can allow both them to love Rebecca and to allow and grow a relationship with you. But also there's this tussle, isn't there? Because I imagine part of the children, and maybe they felt this and maybe they didn't, I don't know, that they would somehow feel like they were being unfaithful to their mum if they loved you. I mean, I find that a lot with clients when a parent has died and I'm working with the family where there's a new step parent. Often they kind of say, I want dad to be happy, but I hate that her clothes are in mum's cupboard and she's standing in mum's kitchen and mum should be there.
Yeah, 100%. I think coming in, I was really conscious of that. Like, first of all, where is my place? I'm not their mum. Their mum is here. And I always really want to keep that relationship going and them to know they can speak about their mum. That is really important for both Rio and I. But what am I doing and who am I? And
So how
where do
can
I,
I make space to have my space
yeah.
alongside Rebecca? How do I accommodate that?
Yeah, and was really, really difficult at the beginning. I didn't really know my place. The children did feel guilty, and yeah, it was hard. I mean, it was new for all of us. But it's weird now because I feel in such a good place. Don't get me wrong, there's hard days, but I feel in such a good place. I know my role now. I know my role, and we're all comfortable with our family setup. And it's weird because I feel like I have my own kind of relationship with Rebecca. Like,
That's so
and
interesting. With this
yeah,
woman you've never met.
yeah, it's very, very bizarre. Like, if I say it out loud, it is quite strange, or maybe explain it to someone that isn't in this kind of setup. I mean, I love her children. Well, I see them as my children, but she's their mum. I feel like they're both our children.
Yes.
And with she's started their journey with them, and I feel like I'm finishing it with them, for her. So, I mean, it's like a kind of before I maybe when I first met them, I felt maybe a bit threatened. I was compared quite a lot, and I don't like the comparison because I feel like we're two separate people and we could both be great on our own, singly. Um,
Comparison in all areas is direct route to misery, isn't it?
yeah,
Other people comparing you, you comparing yourself, comparing on social media, and certainly in the intimacy of family relationships, comparing each other is
it's
destructive.
yeah, it's the route to unhappiness, I would say. And there was a lot of that at the beginning. I was compared in all aspects. Whereas now, even if I am compared, I feel stronger in myself. And I know that I'm doing what's right for the kids. And I think of, if I was to leave this earth now, would I want someone to come? Would I be happy looking down if someone was like me, doing their best and loving my children? I would. And I feel like comfort from that.
Yeah, completely. And I'm working with someone now whose partner is dying, and one of the conversations they've been having is, if you have another partner, and what would you would in this case it's a dad, would he write a letter to a future partner? And it feels like you kind of feel that you and Rebecca are writing each other letters in a way.
Yes. Oh my God. It's exactly that. It is strange, but yeah, I feel like she's a part of our family. We're all one in a weird sense.
And so before, it must have been like you felt she was saying, like, get out of my kitchen, and now she's saying thank you for feeding my children, like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
or
don't know if it
something.
was yeah, I don't know if it was necessarily her before that was saying get out of my kitchen. I think it was just the pressure of the family accepting me, and also the public, like all the articles, comparisons on like websites. And also I was a young girl from a reality show. It wasn't exactly the it didn't look great, but it was, it always was great. And Ria and I knew that, and we knew we could make it work. But I think it took a while for people to see that.
Yeah. And you to trust yourself, and the sort of loyalty binds of sort of being pulled and pushed. It sounds like when you allowed yourself, each one of you, to really feel the love that you have for each other, you could see that we can have multiple loves all at the same time. They could love their mum, miss their mum, think and talk about their mum, and love you, have fun with you, hate you, be cross with you because you forgot their gym kit. And that you can, that there's enough, there isn't a single Kate, there's enough love for everybody. And then that is what enables the family to kind of function within the distress and the loss of Rebecca.
Yeah, like I always think people think, well, they can't love two of you, but we can love more than one child. We can love so many people. So of course children can. But I mean, I think sometimes it's other people's judgments on children as well, because yeah, it works. Like
I think,
funny,
yeah, I interrupted you.
don't worry, you go.
We're very simplistic, aren't we? And we put people in boxes like Rio can love Rebecca and you. You can have loved people before Rio, and one doesn't knock the other out.
Yeah, 100%.
What has helped you, do you think?
Talking, I'd say, going for walks. I'm a great believer in communication. So I think the more it bottles up and the more you keep it in, the more you kind of explode. So just talking and speaking to people in similar situations, being open with the children about all of our emotions where we can and how we feel. And, so that, I don't know, the more open you are, the more you can understand where people are at and where the kids are at, and, what little things might trigger them and what little things might trigger me, and just understanding each other more.
It feels like you're doing the opposite of what you experienced? Like, so there wasn't much communication, so you felt quite alone and not known and didn't know what was going on, and that you're using that as a kind of engine. Not against your parents, because obviously you kind of uh, know that they loved you in the best way they could, given who they were and what they knew. And actually, we understand a great deal more now. But that you kind of recognize that communication in a family is the key. I don't know if the tool is the right word. It is the key that allows the family to weather the bad weather and also come together, and that you can have open, honest conversations, which mean very difficult sometimes conversations, and and you can have this idea of rupture and repair that, like, perfect families, and I know you've talked about wanting to be perfect before, don't exist, but that you can have a family where you can have a big fight, but as long as you can repair after the fight, and that you can allow the fight, you can allow the difference of opinion, you can allow the angry emotions, that those families feel safe and loved and can trust.
Yeah, 100%. I think they say you either go in the way that your parent in the way your parents did, or kind of go away from it. And yeah, that's exactly it. Like, I know I'm probably think my mum wasn't aware all the time of how I was feeling. And I wouldn't really now, because of that, especially, I would never want my children to feel like that. I always want them to feel heard and understood. And if they don't agree with me, then it's fine, because that's what happens. But it's not the end of the world. And we can still have different opinions and think differently, but love each other and be together, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
also, I think you're going to have differences of opinions and conflicts and all through life. So I just think it's important that, we teach our children that in the home first, and they understand, so that they can carry it with them through their life.
So are you dropping the perfection thing a bit?
Listen, Julia, I do try. I try to. I'm a work in progress. Um, I'm trying to drop it. I'm much better. I know I can't do everything, and I know everything can't be perfect. Whereas before, I thought I could do everything, and I thought it all could be perfect. So I'm feeling and doing much better, but I still think I've got a little way to go, because, yeah, I think, but that's all down to maybe it not being perfect when I was a kid, and trying to, like, also the children have lost their mum, and I know that I can never take that away and bring her back, but just trying to make everything that they've got now the best it possibly could be. But also that leaves me open to then uh not being able to do it, and then feeling like I've let myself down.
I mean, like, it makes sense what perfection, doesn't it? That if you've suffered and you've had no control, it forms a belief system, like, I'm gonna make it right, I'm gonna have control this time, I'm gonna fix this, because we're sort of human beings. I think we have an instinct to want to kind of fix what went wrong. But also that sets up quite a kind of negative cycle, because then you set yourself a task that isn't achievable, and then you kind of have that awful shitty committee of, like, maybe you want to do this perfect roast chicken and you burnt it. and and then it's like, oh my god, I'm a useless cook, rather than, like, I burnt the chicken. You don't make it specific. And the idea, the sort of Donald Winnicott, the great psychologist of the 50s, is that being a good enough mum, like, being good enough is really a lot.
Yeah, I'm working on that. Like, how you just explained the chicken is literally how I think. If I burn the chicken, which happens sometimes, I think, oh my God, I'm useless. Oh, why? Like, I just go into self-destruct rather than thinking that it's just a burnt chicken.
So, but now do you have the awareness that you go into self-destruct and then you can pull yourself back from self-destruct?
Yeah, like, I feel like I'm very self-aware. So although I'm sometimes doing that, I'm aware that I'm doing it. And then
Which is a big step.
yeah, and then I will stop. Like, but I haven't got to the point yet where I don't do it.
But I think the more you stop, then we're habit forming beings, then you're more likely to stop, because you'll kind of do it quicker. you know, like my husband and I, we've been married like 42 years and we fight, but now because we know what we fight about, we only have about we have three things that we fight about probably. And now we kind of fast track it, you know? Rather than the fight going on for hours. You're like, okay, it's that tick, that's that tick, and you kind of get through it.
Yeah, that's funny.
What do you think has helped you navigate all of this? Rio, the public persona, developing your own work and your own identity, being a mum in every kind of domain. What are the things that you've called on that have helped you, or the people?
Rio. So I feel like since I've been with Rio, I've really calmed down. I used to be quite erratic before. And he's just, well, I think it's love, isn't it? He loves me for who I am. God, I feel a bit emotional. He loves me for
Oh,
who I am. So I get to thrive then, I suppose, as myself, don't I? And it's
yeah.
no longer bloody hell, why am I crying? Um,
Oh, it's
it's
so
no longer
moving.
like having to, keep up with who everyone wants me to be because I feel loved because maybe at certain times I didn't feel like that before.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And that love is so curative,
Yeah,
that
it's amazing.
that he loves you, not for a particular part of you or your fabulous boobs, which they are.
Thank you.
Or your or any of the things you might kind of see, but for all of you. And then you feel fully loved. And maybe that's the first time you've ever felt fully loved and felt safe being who you are.
I think so. And I think also I feel like I'm much more than what I look like. And often in my life, people take me on just what I look like rather than who I am. I feel like that's been like that for a lot of my life. So yeah, I think it's the comfort of being loved fully and feeling loved.
And that's given you confidence, doesn't it?
Mm, sorry.
That's right. The being fully loved and then people kind of judging you from the outside. That's such a kind of 21st century dynamic, but also kind of crazy making, isn't it? Sort of people feeling they know you and not knowing you, and you knowing yourself, and then getting influenced by how they see you. And but it sounds like Rio just knew you.
Yeah, he did. And also I'm at comfort with that now because maybe before when I wasn't happy in myself and, having more issues, those comments and people's opinions really affected me. Whereas now I feel I've got Rio and the children and I'm loved and we're in a good place. And I feel good about myself that the opinions don't get to me as much because we're secure.
Yeah.
Whereas in those early days, when, I was finding my feet as a stepmom and we were all just becoming a new family and we didn't really know what we're doing and bits were going wrong, those opinions got to me because we didn't quite have it sorted and we didn't know if it was going to work. Whereas now I feel that I can ignore a lot of that.
I mean, that's so powerful and wonderful to hear. And part of, I guess, you recognizing that you've changed because you've been loved is recognizing that you, in giving love to Rio, that he receives it. You give it your love to the children, they receive it, that you feel of worth because of the love that you give. It's not just one way.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's all very emotional, Julia. You've got me crying. You've got me in my feelings. I don't know what to say.
um, what else was I going to say? I guess one of the kind of big things that you're showing me is how we change, over time. And that when we allow difficult things to influence us, pain is the agent of change. It's like you said, it was so difficult when you first went into the house, but now you feel really secure. You didn't shut down and back out. You kind of went through the weather of it and have allowed the circumstances to change you and then you to change and influence your whole family.
Yeah, I mean, there is that saying, I don't know, nothing good comes easy. And I do feel like it wouldn't feel this great and this good if it come this easy. And it was hard. But when I look back at my life and my journey so far, a lot of the really difficult things I've been through have shaped me into who I am now. And I'm grateful for those experiences. I feel like it's made me wiser. It's opened my heart more. It's opened everything more. Just to, I mean, I do think I am a completely different person. If you just rewind even like 5 years before I met Rio, I just feel worlds apart. But I think I've gone through so much in such a short period that, yeah, I've changed, but for the better.
What have you learned, do you think, from all this change and roller coaster you've been in?
What have I learned? To be myself, I suppose. To not um, listen to what other people think. Don't let that change who you are or influence you too much, because if you've got a good heart and you're doing things the right way, people may not see it, but that doesn't matter, because as long as you and the people closest to you that know you know, that's all that matters. Love is so powerful. Oh my gosh, like it's healing, isn't it, for everyone? And just, I suppose, I just, I don't know. I look at me before and I think, I suppose I feel like I know myself more now as well. I feel like
Yeah,
I've been on an internal journey. Like
yeah.
I'm not at the end of the road. I'm still a work in progress, but just, yeah, it's kind of just, it's been a real big journey.
And that you have been transformed by daring to love. It's a risky business, and letting yourself be loved. And that from it, you've learnt who you are. In a way, it sounds like you didn't fully know who you are, and you kind of do now. So, in knowing who you are, you're much more robust, you're much kind of sturdier. You can't be blown by other people's comments so much, or you're less frightened. You look much less anxious than the last time I saw you.
Oh yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am anxious sometimes. And like that's not fully gone because I've always been quite anxious. But I feel like I've kind of, I think, got a bit more of the tools to know what to do when I'm feeling like that, rather than just letting the storm just like blow me over kind of thing. Like I've learned more about what I need and myself.
What do you do? I mean, that is the key, isn't it? It's not that we're not going to have these feelings. We can't, I always think with therapy, you can't go back and fix the wounds that happened to you or how they play out in you, but the therapy gives the awareness of how you can support yourself that it's happened to you. So what do you use if you have a bout of anxiousness? What do you do?
I mean, I don't do anything spectacular. I just maybe, you'll know this, Jude, I'm very bad at texting back on my phone. I just leave my phone. My phone makes me
Good.
anxious. I feel like I was speaking about this earlier, but people message you instantly and they expect an instant response. And the more that stacks up, that makes me anxious. So I leave my phone. I take some time out. I think I quite enjoy having a long shower. I know that's weird, but just
That's
being
great.
there and having a shower, and walking for me is like major. I love getting fresh air, walking, and just being with nothing else going on kind of thing.
I'm just going to cough. Sorry.
Can I put the aircon on? Sorry, I'm getting flustered.
Um, Walking is such good therapy. I mean, you're completely right. You've got such good instincts, Kate, that walking is amazingly therapeutic. Being outside, being in the air, moving your body, shifting your body while you're kind of processing something, the movement shifts your thoughts. And you'll go out feeling kind of tight and anxious, but also the movement reduces the cortisol so that you feel better. And by being in nature, you generally feel better.
It's funny because I've always loved walking, and we have some, I spoke to you about this, some of the deepest chats with the kids when we're walking, but I never really put the two and two together until I spoke to you and you said, yeah, that's when it happens. And even now, with the kids, if they've got something to say, it always seems to come out on a walk because I feel you're just relaxed.
And you're not eyeballing each other, and you can have silence. Lawrence could not speak at all on one family walk and speak a lot another time. So there's no pressure. So people feel able to kind of really open up. And
Yeah.
being outside frees you, doesn't it?
Mm.
I don't know if, I mean, we can cut this, do you want to talk about your miscarriage, or is that too raw?
I'm happy to if you want to. When is it going out? When's this going out?
About the end of October.
Yeah, this is fine. We can talk about it. I feel all right. I've got to be honest, Julia.
Good. So I wondered, Kate, if I know that you've had a miscarriage, and often miscarriages are very hidden and unvoiced, but 1 in 4 pregnancies ends in miscarriage. So I wondered if you could speak about your experience of it, because all of us experience it very differently.
Yeah. I mean, well, sorry. Where do you start with this? I think I was really obviously I kind of had a feeling that it might happen, but I'm a bit of I'm a massive worrier, not a bit of a worrier, and I do worry about lots of things on a daily basis. I overthink everything, so I thought it was just another. I couldn't, you know, differentiate from if I was overthinking or if it was actually happening, but some of my symptoms did slow down a little bit, so really I kind of knew, but I pushed it to the back of my head, I suppose. Um, and I think that no one really talks about it. And until you've been through it, you can't really understand it. I suppose that's like most things in life. But for me, I mean, it shocked me a lot. And I did go into myself, and, I was struggling with communicating with anyone, and wasn't really prepared for the emotions. I actually thought when I was in that, I'll be all right. That I could deal with that. If that happens, I could deal with it. Like, I just brushed it off. I don't know. And then when you're in it, the hormones, and I just hadn't thought about what actually happens when you have a miscarriage. Like, even just with your body, not let alone the emotions, that you've got a baby inside you and that baby somehow needs to come out of
Come
you.
out.
I
Yeah.
hadn't even taken that into consideration.
It's
And
brutalizing that you give birth.
yeah, and then having to um just deal with the emotional turmoil, and you've still got the pregnancy hormones in you, and even just the adjustment to your body. Like, your body was growing to grow a baby, and now all of a sudden there's no baby there, and you're left with this body that isn't quite how it was. And just for me, it was also the constant reminder, like, my body was changing, and if you go to the toilet you're bleeding. It's a constant reminder constantly that this has happened. And for a couple of weeks, um I've really, really struggled. I mean, I think I had found out on the Friday, and I had to wait over the weekend for the surgery. So
Gosh,
that weekend
it was awful.
but it was Lorenz's birthday that weekend as well. So it's kind of pretending that nothing, the kids knew, but kind of being normal, like having to, because obviously I want him to have an amazing birthday. It was his 16th,
Wow.
but kind of just all over the place. And I actually went to the hospital on my own. I said, I'm just going to go on my own. Ria can meet me there. But it was the same hospital where I had Cree. It
Oh
was the
my
same
goodness.
anaesthetist, have you say it,
Yeah.
and the same doctor,
Obstetrician. Yeah.
obstetrician. And
Whoa.
as I
That's
was, yeah, as I was actually going down to have it, you're laying on the bed, I held my emotions together the whole time I was in there. I don't know how. And as I looked, I just felt like I was having my C-section again. I just broke down in tears, and then the next thing I knew, I was awake. But it's just a whirlwind of emotions. And I feel like I just really wanted to speak about it because I was struggling. I wanted to share it because I also find sometimes there's an expectation of me to, like, be present and social media and be here. And I didn't want that. And that took a bit of stress away from me by sharing it.
yeah. Yeah.
And also I wanted to be able to speak about it later down the line to hopefully help others. I've found that, like, especially with my podcast, speaking always helps me and it
Yeah.
helps others. So it's kind of like a win-win. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a crazy time. I think when you're in those moments when things like this happen, you often think you're never gonna feel okay again, and you're never gonna, you know, be okay. But I am, and I feel quite good at the moment. Obviously, the thought of, I don't know if we're gonna have another baby. I don't know. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. But the thought of that terrifies me, to
Mm.
be honest with you, going
Yeah.
through that. But I feel good. I just think it's important to, like, talk about these things and get it out.
Yeah. I mean, you are amazingly honest and have such courage in being so honest. And it sounds horrendous and also kind of surreal and crazy making. And at moments you couldn't quite believe what was happening and you felt numb. And at other times it was like too much. And of course, it influences your confidence in having another baby, because before you were kind of innocent, oh, you get pregnant and you have a baby. And now you can't not know that you can get pregnant and have a miscarriage. And, the minute you saw that pregnancy test for this baby, you imagined yourself as a family with another baby. So you're grieving the future you had every right to expect, as well as this particular baby. And so it's a lot to get your head around.
Yeah, I think like it was early. Well, they call it early miscarriage. It was 12 weeks. But you still, like you say, for the whole 12 weeks are thinking about, right, where what
The
are we gonna do?
car, the
Yeah,
bed.
the
Yeah.
bedroom. Oh God, we've got bloody hell, we're gonna have like 5 kids. What car are we gonna drive? We've all, it is early, but you're excited because it's
Yeah.
the thought of a new life and you start thinking about things. You start even like planning your holidays around when can we book our holiday because when's the baby going to be here? And without realizing, most days you're kind of thinking about it constantly. You
Yeah.
don't always speak out loud about it, but you are. So then
It
all of a sudden,
influences every decision.
every decision, like literally everything, even what you're eating, what you're drinking, what you're doing, taking your tablets every day. So then I think people always sometimes say, oh, it's early. But, you know, for a woman, especially who's been feeling that and feeling the physical changes, the sickness, and the hormonal changes, it doesn't feel like that. But I don't
No.
think I'd ever really took that fully into consideration. I'm going to be honest. I hadn't really realized the extent of how it makes you feel. And I do know quite a few people that have been through it, but maybe I hadn't, I don't think I'd been there for them, but I hadn't really fully understood what they were going through.
The level of loss. And I think often, as you say, people think it's the number of weeks, which is the emotional loss. So if it's only 12 weeks, then you haven't lost much. But actually, it's the emotional investment and the hope and the dream and the expectation that you grieve for. It's not the number of weeks.
Yeah.
And it feels to me like you're still grieving and you've grieved and you're doing really well considering what you've been through.
Yeah, thanks. I'm feeling quite good about the whole thing. Like, I feel a bit more like me,
Good. Got
you lose,
yourself back.
yeah, you lose yourself a bit. But I'm talking again, like the more I talk, the more you can process it all. So yeah, I'm grateful that I feel how I feel now because I didn't think I would. I even like, I've got the podcast and I thought, oh God, I can't do the podcast because I'm there trying to get everyone to open up, but yet I'm trying to hide but yeah, I've overcome all those small little feelings as well, or big things actually.
So you're doing the series 2 of the podcast of Blended, and it feels like it's both important professionally, but also psychologically, that you grow and learn with Blended, and that it's been a really important part of your process.
Yeah, it's such a passion project for me. Um, it is literally like therapy, and it helps other people. So I mean, it's amazing. Sometimes it can get a bit deep and it can feel a bit emotionally draining when the subjects are quite close to home or, people have had really big losses. But I'm just so grateful that I get to meet with these people and I learn stuff from people all the time, and just experience other people's journeys and help people in the process. So
It's a
I'm
real
great.
win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for the platform to be able to do it. And without reality TV or anything like that, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. It's like that reality TV, which is probably kind of one of the worst things in your life, has actually meant you've had so many good things in your life. And who knows, that we have to say yes to things, don't we? And then what happens, we kind of can choose and go with.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
so what do you have a question for me?
Oh, do I have a question for you? Oh, I don't know what, I need to think. Hang on a minute. I can't think of one. I'm enjoying you asking me questions, Julia.
Did have to ask me one.
Are you okay?
I'm good. I I'm excited by doing this podcast. I mean, I think it'll take a while to build up because I haven't got such a public profile as you, but I do think these are important conversations.
I love what you do, your books and everything you do. And I think you are, I've said it to you before, like so inspiring, so wise. I love talking to you because I feel like when I talk to you, you help me understand myself a little bit more because I feel like you analyze me and then help me understand myself. So I think what you're doing's going to be great and it's going to help so many people.
That means a lot to me, Kate. Thank you.
And also let me add, you've helped our family. Since Julia's been on our podcast, she probably wishes I didn't have her number because every now and then I just text her, help, what do I do? Can you help with this? Can you help with this? So yeah, we've formed quite a friendship, I suppose.
We have got a friendship and it's a very meaningful one. And I really appreciate you joining me today, and good luck with the second series of Blended. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me and good luck with your podcast.
Thank you.
How was that? They're clapping. I've just looked and said, how was that?
Was that all right?
Yeah, that was really good.
Good.
Was that okay for you?